Hello and welcome to the Monday evening.
You love ball like I do. After Dark's a must listen.
It's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
After Dark on this Sunday night, February the 2nd, 2025, Grammys night across the globe, and I'm John Fanta. We've got Tyler Hansbrough. We've got Rob Dauster. Tyler, have you ever been one to jam at a karaoke bar? You know, it is Grammys night. Have you ever been a guy who stepped up on the stage, and if so, what artists would you sing?
My go-to song, yes, I've been on the stage, and it's a rare moment. It was mainly in my college days. There's a nice little bar. Sunday night, they have karaoke night. It would be Should Have Been a Cowboy by my guy, Toby Keith. It's one of my all-time favorite jams. Know it word for word.
That's what I'm talking about.
I'm a big,
Rob, I know.
I'm a big wagon
Go
wheel
ahead.
guy, Fanta. Friends in Low Places and Wagon Wheel are my two go-tos when it comes to karaoke. I used to be a big karaoke guy, not so much anymore. These pipes aren't as golden as they used to be.
Yeah, we still could hear it tonight in the city one of these times. That's for certain. Miami 2017, Seen the Lights Go Out on Broadway, or Scenes from an Italian Restaurant. I got to go Billy Joel at a karaoke bar. I got to go with the original Piano Man. Let's get to college basketball talk on this Sunday night. In the Big Ten, earlier today in Champaign, Ohio State is up double digits in the second half. The Buckeyes, who already own wins away from Columbus over Kentucky at Madison Square Garden, at Mackey Arena against Purdue. It's why they're on the right side of things, bubbly, but on the right side of things with wins like that. They looked very good in this game. And then Will Riley and Kylan Boswell and Illinois said, not today, Ohio State. 87-79, the Illini a winner over the Buckeyes. Rob, you have been bullish on the Illini all season long. Not that you're learning anything new today, but are you as bullish on them now as you have been? And what's your reaction from this game?
I honestly don't know. I'm at a point where I'm completely lost and completely confused by everything that Illinois does. I came into today thinking, okay, they get Tomislav Ivicic back, right? And it looks like they pretty much got their rotation back and their main guys back. And okay, we're going to see Illinois at their best here. And then Kai Boswell is not starting. Ben Humrickhouse is not starting. They are down. They don't really click into gear until about midway through the second half when Will Riley decides to go supernova. I think he had 20 points on 7 field goal attempts in the second half. Kai Boswell was fantastic in the last 7 minutes after getting benched, playing pretty terribly for, I would say, the first, about 80% of that game. I feel like every time I watch Illinois play, like you see flashes of it, right? And the flashes are becoming kind of less and less right now. You can see them, you can see their ceiling in moments. When Will Riley does what he does in the second half of this game, that's where their ceiling is, right? When Morris Johnson is pounding the offensive glass and literally dunking everything. Like if that dude has the ball within a 6-foot radius of the rim, he is dunking it, and it does not matter how many people are in or around his face. When you see Kai Boswell doing what he did in like the last 5 minutes of this game, last 5-6 minutes, defending on the ball, getting into the lane and creating, right? Absorbing contact when he can finish around the rim. And we didn't even see a good game out of KJ or out of Tommy tonight. It just, I want to feel like this is a step in the right direction for Illinois. And I want to feel like this is something where they're starting to figure it out and they're starting to piece it back together. And Brad Underwood benching those two guys, saying we need more defense out of you. We need you to look like you care a little bit more. Whatever that message was, I want to say, and I want to feel like this is them taking that step and getting back towards being what they were when they went on the road and smacked Arkansas by 687 points. But now look at what's happened to Arkansas, and Oregon, and it's like, well, is it really that impressive going and beating Oregon in Oregon's building right now? So I don't know. I'm completely lost in Illinois. I want to buy in because they are so much fun when they were playing well. But Tyler, I don't know, man. Every time I feel like I'm trying to fight my way back into being on the bandwagon, it's hard for me to talk myself into that right now.
I buy Illinois. I've said that this year. And the thing about Illinois tonight, you just mentioned it. KJ didn't have his best game. They still found ways to win this ball game. Now, if you look at Illinois' bench, they outscored Ohio State 43-4. So that means they've got a lot of contributions from a different players, and I thought that was big for them. But also they out-rebounded Ohio State, I just feel like this team is more complete. And the way this game went, Illinois executed down the stretch. They had a 15-point run with 7 minutes late in the game, and I thought that's where they really busted open this game and executed down the stretch to get this win against Ohio State, which Ohio State's a pretty good ball club. But they came back. They fought back from the deficit in the first half and executed late in the second and got a big win at home.
Look, Fanta, I know why Tyler's in on Illinois right now. It's because they went with a lineup where they had Tomislav Ivicic and they had Morris Johnson. Tyler saw two guys that are like 6'10", 250 out there. He's like, let's go. We're in, baby. He saw 17 offensive rebounds. He's like, yeah, we're back. The Illini, let's go. Am I wrong?
Hey, you know what? I like old school basketball. And, I'll give it to Illinois. They shot 4 for 20 from the three-point line. So there's going to be enough rebounds for the bigs. So if you don't get the ball down low, Coach Williams used to always say, well, you can just rebound it if you don't get a pass down low. So I like that mentality. But I just think this Illinois is a more complete team. When I looked at them last year, I felt like they struggled executing late in games, and they didn't make smart plays. I think this team is a smarter team. I think the KJ kid gives them different options, although he did have a bad scoring night. You look at it, he still had 7 assists. He's a good passer. They have bigs. And, I think the Boswell kid is a good player too. So they have a lot of different options that I really like.
They have different options. They've got upside. To me, Illinois is one of the highest variance teams in terms of 4, 5, or 6 seeds in the NCAA tournament that you're going to see. They could make the Elite Eight. They could lose in the first round to UC Irvine. That's the kind of way that this could end. And that's the kind of team that they have. When you lost all that they lost last year, it's hard to know how this group's going to handle that stage in March. It takes a different edge. It takes a different toughness. And I think that's why Brad Underwood made the move he made today. Brad Underwood made an Elite Eight last year. He knows what it takes. And so you make some changes. There's a lot of coaches who don't have the stones to do what he did today. In the middle of your season, you're in February, that could backfire on your locker room. They fought through adversity in this game. That's what today taught me. At one point in this game, I thought to myself, if Illinois loses this game, we have to totally change the conversation around them. The fact that they fought through the adversity that they did, and Morris Johnson to me is a really good story on this club because his motor is limitless. He is in on everything, and he has gotten better and better as the year's gone on, and to think that he's a freshman is something else. And Ivicic, to give them a double-double today, they didn't shoot the basketball well. Again, Tyler, 4 of 20 from 3, and they scored 87 points. That shows you how potent they can be. Again, Elite Eight could happen. They could be an early exit. That's just the kind of team that they have this year.
Well, look, I don't mean to cut you off, Tyler, but I want to. You mentioned the 4 for 20 shooting, right? Illinois shoots almost 48% of their field goal attempts from 3, right? That's top 20 in the nation. They are on the season shooting 31% from 3, but in Big Ten play, they are quite literally the worst 3-point shooting team in the conference. And they're still shooting more than half of their shots from beyond the arc and playing at the 8th fastest tempo in college basketball. So, you're shooting a ton of threes. You're not making any of them. And I think what we saw today was Brad Underwood coming off of a stretch where they had lost 4 out of 6, saying, I'm done with this. We can't shoot. We can't make shots. So let's go get the guy that's going to get every single miss and finish it in and around the basket. I think part of some of the issues that you're seeing with this Illinois team is just when if you're built on 3-point shooting and you're built on having this point guard where you're trying to create space and get shooters out there to allow KJ to get in the lane and either throw that lob to Morris Johnson or spray it out to guys that are going to knock down threes. And you don't have people that can knock down threes, but you don't have someone that can run to the rim. Like it messes everything up when you have a team built around 3-point shooters that can't make threes. So I think that what Brad Underwood did was said, all right, we're scrapping it. We're not going to shoot anymore. Now we're just going to get all these guys in here. We're going to get every single offensive rebound, and we're going to try to play it that way. And he got bailed out by the fact that Will Riley went completely bonkers in the last 13 minutes of this game. And that's my worry with Illinois, is that they're built to play a certain way. They haven't been able to play that way at all in conference play. And then they tried to mix it up and got bailed out by the fact that they had a first-round pick go and take over this game. And it's just, I don't know. They have some things that they got to figure out. The good news, you got Rutgers and you got Minnesota to try to figure those things out before you get into the stretch run of Big Ten play.
Well, you're right. And as we go through their upcoming schedule, I think, Rob, you asked the question, have they turned that corner? Did we find something out that's going to lead them to a big February? If you're going to have a big February, then you handle business in Piscataway. You handle business in Minnesota, which is not a given. Ask Michigan, ask Oregon how visits to the barn this year have been against a desperate Ben Johnson and Minnesota program. Then you host UCLA. Then you host Michigan State. Then you're at Wisconsin. Then you play Duke at Madison Square Garden, which I think is the best thing the doctor could have ordered for both those teams. One for Duke, somebody outside of the trash ACC, to be frankly honest. And for Illinois, somebody to test themselves that's different than a Big Ten team. So let's look at the Big Ten, right? Look at the Big Ten. Michigan State is 9-1. Purdue is 9-2. Michigan's 8-2. Maryland, UCLA, Wisconsin, all bunched together at 7-4. Rob Dauster, the team in the Big Ten, a team or two that you are buying when it comes to March. I'm not saying regular season champion. If you want to give that to me, you can. But I want to know the team or two, Rob, that you would use BetMGM to say, you know what, I trust their ability to be the best of the Big Ten.
I think that Michigan State probably has the highest floor because you know what you're getting with Michigan State. They're pounding the glass. They're going to go try to get every single rebound on both ends, and then they're going to get out and run on you. And they have guys that fit that mold, that try to play that way. They can't shoot, but they don't rely on that 3-point shooting to try to find a way to be able to win. I think Illinois is the team most likely to be able to make some kind of wild upset, right? And then Purdue, to me, is the team that's most likely to find a way to lose to somebody early on in the tournament because they just scream. They get a matchup in the second round against, I don't know, someone like a that can force turnover, someone that can cause them some problems defensively, and it won't be a good sign. But I'm riding with Michigan State. If you rebound on both ends of the floor and you get down in transition and get easy baskets, you're going to find a way to be able to make some noise in the NCAA tournament, I think.
Yeah, I've always liked Izzo's style. And you brought up a good point. They don't rely on 3-point shooting, which is a roller coaster style of basketball, in my opinion. And they have an identity. They play tough. And you talk about it. You got to win ugly in the tournament. Michigan State definitely knows how to do that. My only issue with Michigan State is they have played their easiest portion of the Big Ten schedule. If you still look at where they're going to go at UCLA, they play Oregon, they play Michigan twice, Illinois, Purdue, and Wisconsin. That's just part of their back end of their Big Ten schedule. So we'll find out what they're really about here in the second half of that Big Ten schedule. But if I'm looking for two teams in the Big Ten that I really like to make some noise in March, I'm going Michigan. I really like Vlad Golden. He's a big, and also Danny Wolf. I've talked about this before on the show. I think when you have two bigs that have chemistry like that and you put them in pick and roll situations, a big on a big with that size, it's very difficult for defenders to guard that because it's such a different type of action. And also, I do like Purdue. I like Braden Smith. I think he's kind of a floor general in a way. He gets 8 assists a game, and Trey Kaufman-Wren has really improved, and Fletcher Lawyer. They have experience. They have a winning culture, so I'm going to go with them to do some damage in the tournament as well.
Hey, Tyler, what would have happened if we would have put you and Deion Thompson in ball screens over and over and over again back in 2009?
I'm not sure we would have known what to do. That would have just been – we just tell Ty, hey, go in the corner. Me and Deion got this one. But, yeah.
I'm sure that would have gone over real good.
That would have gone over really well there. Good stuff from both of you. I would go with Michigan. And if you look at Michigan's upcoming schedule, they're 8-2 in the Big Ten. Oregon at home. Oregon's right now is in a bad way. Sorry, Trevor Valise. The Ducks, they fell tonight to Nebraska. Then they're at Indiana this week. That's a big game. I mean, that you got to go to Assembly, find a way. Then you host Purdue. So you still host Michigan State this month, which will be a huge game in Ann Arbor. That'll be a real big-time atmosphere there. I think the Wolverines, they could play different. If they work out their turnover problems and Donaldson and Gale are cooking, the two bigs, you can't simulate that in your practice. So watch out for Dusty May and some March magic. We got a break. Up next, Cal's revenge. What happened in Lexington last night? What does Tyler Hansbrough think? Is he rooting on Cal right now after watching Big Blue Nation sulk on a Saturday night? We'll go around the country with that and much, much more, reacting off a wild weekend and a terrific Saturday in college basketball. Yes, we will also talk about a certain rivalry game that Tyler Hansbrough knows a thing or two about. Not this version, a different version. This is After Dark.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMN, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against-the-spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description.
Welcome back to Field 68 After Dark. John Fanta, Tyler Hansbrough, Rob Dauster with all of you on a Sunday night, 24 hours after an all-timer. This is one of those nights that you will always remember where you were between John Calipari going back to Lexington and leading an Arkansas team that entered at 1-6 in the SEC and leading them past Kentucky in a game that they really controlled wire to wire. And then an hour later, the world stops and Luka Doncic gets traded to the Los Angeles Lakers for Anthony Davis and just a move unlike anything we've ever seen. But John Calipari, as good a CEO in college hoops history, right? Might not, 2025 might be different, but let's face it. In terms of being ahead of the curve a decade ago and having everything in the palm of his hand, and last night he walks in and Tyler, Big Blue Nation is on their feet. They are booing him. They are booing a national champion, a guy who took them to 4 Final Fours. They are raining down boos, and what does he do? His team plays the best they have all season by a wide margin, and they win at Rupp. So, Tyler, my first question to you is this. Were you happy for Cal? Were you laughing at BBN? What'd you think of this whole situation?
Well, first of all, I thought it was Cal's best coaching job in Rupp. I will say that.
Bingo.
And
Bingo.
It is, and this is mind blowing. But Arkansas, heck, for all their struggles, they look like a hell of a team in Rupp on Saturday.
Yes.
And I will just say this for everyone who doesn't know Big Blue Nation, the thought of them actually coming in and when Cal walked out onto the court, who really thought they were going to cheer for him? Big Blue Nation, if you know Big Blue Nation, they are booing him. And when I saw Big Blue Nation give it to Cal, I just laughed. And I was like, that's Big Blue Nation for you. But, you know, I've criticized a lot of Kentucky teams for their lack of three-point shooting. And they went into Rupp, Arkansas, and they shot 52% from the three-point line. Lit them up. I thought, you know, a lot of their struggles, you know, Wagner played well. Johnny Davis, who has been a little bit inconsistent, came in there. He played well. I just thought that Arkansas pretty much controlled the majority of this game. And, you know, sometimes when you have games like this where there's a lot of noise, you know, it can be a little distracting to some of the current players maybe at Kentucky. Maybe they got caught up in it. But Arkansas went in there with the mission. I thought it was one of the best coaching jobs Cal's had in Rupp.
Yeah, the hard thing with this, Fanta, and I'm curious your take on it, is that all these Kentucky guys all the Arkansas guys had a certain level of motivation, right? Like, this is Cal coming back for his revenge. This is Big Z coming back into the building that he left, where I'm sure, I promise you, his Instagram comments, his Twitter messages, his DMs were probably flooded with people yelling at him. The same thing with DJ Wagner, the same thing with Adu Thoreau, the same thing with all of these freshmen that committed to Kentucky and then followed Cal to Arkansas, right? Like, all of those guys had a level of motivation beyond, we have to win this basketball game. And I think Kentucky came in and, you know, Mark Pope knows what it means, but there's only so much that you can tell your team to say, like, hey, these guys, they want to kick your ass because of everything that has happened around this narrative and around the story. And it felt like one of those things where the moment was built for Arkansas and these guys who, frankly, are talented enough that kind of performance should happen way more often than we've seen. You know, if the thing that's kind of frustrating me coming out of that is you space the floor. You put Big Z in pick and pop situations. You had shooters out there that created all of these driving lanes for Nelly Davis and DJ Wagner. And then you let these guys, these talented guards, get paint touches. And if they could finish. If they could spray it out to shooters, they sprayed it out to shooters. Like, that was modern basketball that we spent like 5 or 6 years just calling for John Calipari to play when he was coaching the blue team in Rupp Arena. And then he comes in there, Woo Pig Suey, Tyson Chicken, and does it to Kentucky. Like, to me, that's the thing that probably cuts the deepest for these Kentucky fans, Tyler. You nailed it. Like, he coached one of the most impressive games we've seen him coach in the 2020s, and he did it for Arkansas. Like, that's rough, man. That's a tough scene. I got to eat a lot of crow in Arkansas there, but that's honestly one of the funnier things that I think could have happened in the world of college basketball this season.
He had the last laugh. He went in there and had the last laugh. He walked in. You knew he was going to get booed for how things ended. That awkward Mitch Barnhart interview, which they acted like they were friends. You knew there was tension. And this has been, I think, what makes this funny / entertaining / amazing / yes, it was meant to be, right? Was an Arkansas team that has had a horrible season to this point, where virtually everything's gone wrong. Your boogie flan's done. It looks like everything's going to shut down. And this is one of those things where if they do nothing else this season, they did this. And for Cal, the reward of that, the satisfaction of that, the beauty of that for him, for one night, he was Cal in all of his essence. And the irony is, it was inside the building where he won well over 200 games, and Tyler just delivers the best of them all. You could argue that is as good of a coaching performance, as good of a team performance that he's had, and it was in red. It was in Arkansas red.
Twisting the
That
knife,
is-
T. Just twisting the knife.
That is what makes it. That's what makes it so entertaining. But you know what? You could tell the nerves were there. It was the classic case of the prodigal son meeting this master, on the other side, or self-proclaimed a little bit, but master for a while. He's lost his fastball. And on this night, his kids played for him. And I want to give credit, Tyler, to the Arkansas players. Because it could have been easy for them, Tyler Hansbrough, for them to get caught up in the whole game and just crumble. Those kids fought for their coach. You got to credit them for understanding the magnitude of things. I thought Kentucky, they had no answer defensively. Sure, it helps when you make shots over that defense, but that Tyler Hansbrough was really, really impressive.
Yeah, and I thought Big Z played really well for them. He continues to improve, but I'm with Dauster on this. I really thought Arkansas, they've had a disappointing year, and they're honestly one of the more disappointing teams this season so far. But, I really thought when Cal went to Arkansas, I really thought he would turn it around. I thought when his players came over there, I really thought they would make some noise this year. But Fanta, to your point, you could tell that his players really wanted it for Cal too. They were making all the small plays that don't show up in the stat sheet as well. They were putting pressure on Kentucky defensively. When they got the ball, they were pushing it, running it, making the extra pass. Arkansas, they looked like a top 5 dominant team in college basketball in Rupp.
I'll say this, and then I know we got to move on.
Can they salvage it, Rob? Real quick. Can they salvage their season?
Yes, it's the SEC. Like, think about it. It's the SEC. Here's what they got coming up: at Texas, Alabama at home, LSU at home, at Texas A&M, at Auburn. They have 3 quad 1, whatever it is. Dagan's going to remind me again what it is, but it's high quad 1A or whatever potential wins coming up. Q1A.
Q1A.
Right? And you
Q1A.
win. Yeah. So if you get hot, and I know it's a big ask to beat Alabama, to win at Texas A&M, to win at Auburn, right? But I do think that this Arkansas team has the talent to be able to win 2 of those. I would not be I think that they can beat Alabama at home. I think they can win at Texas, and I think they could probably win at Texas A&M. And if you do that, you still got that win over Michigan, right? And it's not like you have any horrible losses on your resume. The worst loss they have right now is at LSU, and that's like a borderline quad 1 win. So the question is, can we get that level of effort, that level of performance, that level of coaching ability moving forward? And I said this last night. I honestly just think that the ghost of Eric Musselman still exists in that program, because what did Muss do forever? He was horrible in November, horrible in December, horrible in January, and then boom, February hits and they figure it out and they make runs in the tournament. This is just what Cal's doing. This is just what Arkansas is. They're going to get hot here. They're going to win a bunch of games. They're going to get in the dance, and we're going to wake up and Arkansas is going to be in the Elite 8. How funny would that be if that actually happened?
Well, that'd be an all-time shocker. That would be an all-time shocker. Let's move to not an all-time shocker, but a statement and an emphatic one in the Tobacco Road rivalry. Yeah, Tyler, we got to get to it here, because on Saturday night in Durham, Duke, they didn't blink. 87-70, they beat North Carolina by 17 in this game. They led by 22 at the half. And it was non-competitive, Tyler Hansbrough. It really was. So I got to hear from you. What was your take on this game?
Well, first of all, I walked out of Cameron. I was on the radio for UNC, which is that was a tough task. I walked out of there thinking that Duke is very, very good. And I know that they're a young team, but they are long, and the way they pressured us, we just couldn't handle Duke's defensive pressure. They put a lot of pressure on the ball, and they had everyone kind of sagged into those driving lanes. So it was just like if we penetrated, we were just getting gobbled up by length, pressure, and we were turning the ball over, especially to start the game at a rapid rate. If you look at some of our trends especially early on in the year. You look at when UNC went to Kansas, they got down big by 20 points to start the half. We had a shot to win it. And then you look at Dayton, we got down big against them. We got down big against Michigan State. We got down big against Duke. And, I really felt like we didn't start the game the way we needed to start to give ourselves a chance to win there. And they're a much more talented team than we are. But when we start the game with lackadaisical turnovers, unforced errors, we're just not going to win those games. And I felt like, when we played defense, we kind of lost. We were a little bit confused in rotations. It just felt like Cooper Flagg was getting some easy looks. They were getting the ball out and pushing. And I'll say this other is the Maluwatch kid, the big. He has great touch. He puts a lot of pressure on the offense. He is a great rim protector. He's an athletic big, and it's just going to continue to get better and better. And the Concanipple kid, he lit us up to start the second half. And, I think Duke this isn't breaking news. They're a contender, and they play hard as well. They played harder than we did on Saturday. And not only were they more talented, but they played harder. And I walked out of there, scratching my head like, man, they're good and they play hard. So,
Tyler, you're breaking all kind of news on this show right now. One, according to Tyler Hansbrough sources, Duke is pretty good. And two, according to Tyler Hansbrough sources, starting a game down 40-13 is not necessarily ideal, especially when you're playing in Cameron. But look, I want to ask you this: what's it like for you to walk into Cameron? For people listening that have never been to a game at Cameron Indoor Stadium, like you're literally just walking on campus, and it looks like, there's a library over there, and then there's like a Duke store over here on this side. And then you walk over here, you walk down some stairs, and there's like a quad over here with a field. And it looks like there's like the chemistry building. And it's like, oh no, that happens to be like one of the greatest college basketball venues ever. It doesn't feel like you're walking past Cameron Indoor Stadium when you walk past Cameron Indoor Stadium. So when you walk up there, when you walk onto that campus, like, what is it like for you? Do people just recognize you? Are they pointing at you? Are they booing you? Are they throwing stuff at you as you walk?
I got there pretty early. That's actually my first time being on their campus, not for a game, not like just literally getting off the bus and going right to the gym, but it's a nice looking campus. It is a old school. It does look like a school building, but I like that feel. I like that small gym, kind of like a big high school. But I had the little bird's nest view up top, so I got to see everything. And it's my first time walking around Cameron and kind of seeing all the history and stuff like that. I thought it was really cool. But
how hard did Coach K recruit you? How hard did Coach K recruit you?
It wasn't a real long recruitment, and we, I think I moved on pretty early in that one. I wasn't going to go to Duke. Just wasn't a fit for me. So wasn't a long.
He's not a Duke guy. He's Carolina born and bred. Is that right?
Yeah. No, not actually. I was a Mizzou fan. They were in a little bit of trouble. Then Coach Williams came over, started recruiting me. But yeah. I actually enjoyed watching the game in Cameron, besides us just getting absolutely curb stomped. I thought the atmosphere was unbelievable, and they know that. And you got to give John Shire a lot of credit, and the reason I say that is because, how he's winning, especially in this new portal era where a lot of guys try to get older players. He's taking freshmen and really making them effective and kind of changing the thought that you can't win with freshmen. And he's really turned them around. Like, this is pretty much a new roster. And he's taking guys, the kid from Purdue who comes in, he plays effective minute. And then the Malik Brown kid, the more veteran guy they got from Syracuse coming over, they're playing all their roles. And then you mix in these freshmen who are having a huge impact. And, he needs a lot of credit for that, because he's definitely reversed that thought for me as well.
What they're doing is just ridiculous. What Duke is doing, and when you look at their ACC schedule, I don't think they're going to lose a game in this league. I don't. Like, they got to go to Clemson on Saturday. They could be susceptible to dropping one there, but maybe. But they'd have to play an off game. You know, their A game is just otherworldly. You know, it's not great. It's otherworldly. It's beyond that. It's when Con Knipple is hitting perimeter shots, Rob, and when that perimeter is in sync, you have the best prospect and the best all-around talent extraordinaire in the country in Cooper Flagg. And Tyler's right. Like, John Shire's in year 3. He's made his mark on this job. Of course, you have to have March success, but this team has a completeness about it. You know, they have rim protection. They defend at a high level. They've got the best talent in America. Knipple, when he knocks down shots, there's no holes. They are an absolute wagon, and I predict that Duke will go undefeated in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Rob?
Yeah, I think you're right. And we talked about this a little bit late night, but I'm starting to come around to the idea that Cooper Flagg is the best NBA prospect that we've seen in college, maybe even since Anthony Davis. He's doing everything that he's doing as someone that is the age of a high school senior is incredibly impressive. The scoring is there. He's become a really, really good shooter. Like, you could see his development from November until now, right? Like, you can actually see him getting better. And a lot of the stuff that we criticize him for at the end of games, at the end of the Kansas game, at the end of the Kentucky game, like, that stuff has gotten better. And he just keeps getting better. And I've seen people say, you know, oh, I don't know if he's a generational player. And I don't care what kind of term you want to put on it, but, like, he's the number 1 pick in the draft. And he's going to be a guy that wins a lot of games at the NBA level. He's going to be an unbelievable player.
That's ridiculous. He is a generational player and prospect. He's the most gifted defensive player that we have seen at this level in a long, long time. I think that first off, it's not even a question. He's the number 1 pick in the draft. If you're number 1 this long, we're talking years, you're generational. Does it translate to being the best player in the NBA? Who knows? But Tyler, anybody who's saying this kid, what he is on the floor, the amount that he does in a game, that he's not generational, that he doesn't have that type of makeup. You know, I don't want to blow smoke on certain kids because they're kids. But disagree if you'd like, Tyler Hansbrough. I'd like to hear it, but what do you think of Cooper Flagg?
I think he's generational, and he's a rare player that has a huge impact on the game without scoring. Yes, his scoring, he can light you up, and he can take you off ISO and play ISO ball and use his length and athleticism just to pull up right over defenders, but he is a generational player. There's no doubt about it, and, you know, he is a very young freshman as well. He's just going to continue to grow and get better and better. He's generational. That's an easy question. I just want to say my one concern that we've talked about Duke probably running through the ACC is I do think they need to be tested. And if Duke gets tested in the tournament, I think that could be something that you look at that makes them vulnerable. They haven't had enough tested. They haven't been tested enough just because the ACC is so down this year and they're just running through teams.
Yeah, I bet they'll get tested at Clemson. They'll get tested. Last point. Tested at Clemson. They'll get tested by Illinois in the Garden, and they'll get tested. I think when they play at Carolina, that'll be a game. It's that rivalry, man. You're playing on the road. They'll get tested. They'll have a couple teams that give them a pretty good shot. Yeah.
Let's see what the game means for Carolina at that point.
Yep.
Let's keep it moving. Let's go to the Big East, where on Saturday night, the UConn Huskies turned a corner. If there's a turning point in this 2024-25 season, I believe it was last night. Final score, Connecticut 77, Marquette 69. This was really impressive. I mean, UConn, they led by 13 at halftime, but they led by over 20 in this game at one point. Rob Dauster, now that you've had some time to think about it, did UConn season turn?
Yes, and it's not for the reason that you think, right? Like the headline is going to be solo ball and the shots that he hit, and I don't want to minimize that. That was an all-time performance. That was a solo ball legacy game. That is going to be something that UConn fans remember for a long, long time. Just a game like that. It felt like every shot he hit, it was like, oh man, that's a big one. I hope it goes in. Boom, it goes in. But for me, the reason why I'm sitting here saying, okay, I think that might have changed some things for UConn is the defensive intensity was something that we have not seen out of them too often this year, right? First of all, they switched everything 1 through 5 with Samson on the floor and 1 through 4 with Terrace Reed on the floor. That's not something that they've done a lot of this season. And I believe the only other time they did that was against DePaul. Now, what Marquette does is very different than what DePaul does offensively. And they were communicating those switches. There was, when they weren't getting beat on straight line drives, the effort was there, right? They were able to recover. There was a tenacity about them of keeping guys from being able to get to the rim. Like they kept forcing Cam Jones to get to the paint and kind of turn around and dribble. And instead of getting those, he loves that left-handed like scoop floater off the glass. They were cutting him off and making him try to take little turnarounds in the lane, which is a different shot. And he can make some of them, but they were making life difficult for him. And to me, that's what it was. It was the defensive effort. But they also turned the ball over 25 times, right? 25 times against Marquette. I don't think I've ever seen a team go on the road, turn the ball over 25 times, and completely dominate a game against a top 10 team. Like that was the weirdest game of basketball I think I've seen in a long, long time. But, credit to them. If there's something you could take out of this more than anything else, it was that effort defensively. And that's the knock on them. They can't guard. Well, they went on the road against the top 10 team and they guarded last night.
Tyler, any thoughts on the Huskies, where they stand?
Yeah, I still think that they're going to compete for the Big East. Regular season title, tournament title. I think that definitely have the culture to make a little bit of run in the tournament. And also Liam McNeely, he's going to be back off an injury. He's going to be a big time player for, he's had good flashes this season, and he's one of those players that is a really good field player. He knows how to read the game. He doesn't force things. There's been some games where he's played better, or he's a kind of a savvy freshman if that's a thing. And I think having him back is going to be a big deal for them as well.
Fanta, we are heading into one of the biggest weeks of Big East basketball that we've seen in a long time. On Tuesday night, a top 15 showdown in Madison Square Garden between Marquette and St. John's. On Friday night, those very same Johnnies go up to Gamble Pavilion. Rick Pitino versus Dan Hurley in Gamble on campus. Saturday night, Marquette goes on the road. And oh, by the way, Creighton is still sitting there 9-2.
Watch out.
A game out of first place in the Big East. Set the stage for us, Fana. What do we got coming up this week?
This is a monster of a week in the Big East. It's going to be fascinating. First off, Madison Square Garden hosts the first St. John's involved top 15 matchup in college basketball. First time St. John's has been in a top 15 game. Ranked versus ranked, like that, Tyler and Rob. Since 1999. It has been a long time since St. John's hosted a game at the Garden of this magnitude. Marquette coming off the loss. They're going to be hungry. You got Cam Jones on one side. You got R.J. Lewis on the other. Zuby Ejiofor. How does Marquette's spacing, perimeter play, versatility on both ends of the floor, how do they handle the load that is Zuby Ejiofor? Kadari Richmond, the Brooklyn kid, now he's playing his best basketball. St. John's has a chance to get win number 20 on Tuesday night. In a way, I think that they're the team that actually needs it more. And you might say, what do you mean? Regular season title race. Like they're 10-1, Marquette's 9-2. But for St. John's, you've got one quad one win. You got to show at home just how strong you are, because you guys know this. If they lose that game Tuesday night, then you go into a Hornets' nest, Gamble Pavilion Friday. It's going to be a tall ask. Liam McNeely's back. UConn's got some time. UConn, I think, could go the rest of conference play and lose just one time. They could. We don't know how they match up with St. John's because brilliant job, Big East schedule makers. Seriously, you deserve a round of applause. You've set up the marquee games and the money time of year in college basketball. We haven't seen Marquette St. John's yet. We haven't seen UConn St. John's yet. We haven't seen, Creighton now get these other teams back at their place or have to go on the road because they still have Marquette, UConn, and St. John's once again. So I am so intrigued, and I'm in agreement with you. Do not count out Creighton here. Their schedule's very advantageous. They have won 7 in a row. They're 9-2 in the league. Watch out for Greg McDermott. But for St. John's basketball against Marquette Tuesday night at MSG on a weeknight, that is the game of the night in the sport. That is going to be a phenomenal watch, and I can't wait to see it. And then Friday night at Gamble Pavilion, I just hope that man in the red jacket, Tom O'Graden, shows up because Dan Hurley's going to be there. Rick Pitino's going to be there. They're giving out $2 Miller Lights. Are you kidding me? What more could you ask for? That's the Big East. That's what I'm talking about, and this is college basketball. This is why we love it. We're back after this on After Dark.
There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that. Would you be surprised to find out that the Field of 68 is home to more than 35 podcasts? More than 25 team-specific podcasts that are hosted by the people that know what fans want the most. The Goodman and Humble podcast, the DTF podcast, the A10 Insider podcast, and the Mountain West podcast. But wait, there's even more. The Field of 68 will be launching the ACC Insider podcast this year. Subscribe to this channel and come along for the ride.
Welcome back, everybody. Field of 68 After Dark. Coming up in just a few seconds. Going to ask the guys of the 11 ranked teams who lost this week who they were most concerned about. Let's go to the Big 12. All right? Because it was a wild Saturday in this league. Third-ranked Iowa State loses by 19 to Kansas State. I mean, nobody saw this coming. The Cyclones coming off a heartbreaker of a loss. They had it at Arizona. Like, they had that game won, and then Caleb Love hits the shot of the season and forces overtime. It was nuts. You got Texas Tech going to Houston. Think about this, Tyler. Houston was 23-1 in their last 24 Big 12 games, and they lose at home to Texas Tech in a game that Grant McCaslin got tossed, JT Toppin gets tossed. Rob, has there been a stranger call? An ejection there for Toppin? I mean, that game, that was absurd.
Someone else got one of those earlier this season. They've now made it a rule where, like, if a foot or a leg or any kind of lower extremity hits somebody in the groin area, it's an automatic flagrant 2 ejection, which is just it's baffling and utterly insane. That was one of the worst ejections I've ever seen in my life. And shout out to Grant McCaslin, who went absolutely bonkers on the sideline. I think he balled up a piece of paper and threw it into the stands. I'll tell you this, Tyler, I don't know how you feel about it, but if I was a player and I saw my coach go nuts on the officials for a call like that, I think that's part of why you saw Texas Tech respond the way they responded.
Absolutely. Mick Cronin got thrown out in the game earlier this year. I'm a big fan of coaches getting teased or getting tossed. I think it shows that they're standing up for their players in times, and I love to see that as well.
Yeah, I'd love to see the Hansbrough. Do you remember how many technical fouls you got in your college career?
Fanta got 1 a year. I think I ended up with 4. I think it was like hanging on the rim a couple times. I missed a dunk and hung on the rim, tried to grab it and put it back in. Got teed up for there. The only thing I got one time was got a little mix up against Davidson, and I got a tee, and Coach Williams come to the bench. He pulls me. Obviously, he asked me why I was so stupid in the game for picking up that tee. And I just started. I always laugh about that one. I was like, I don't know how to answer that one. But,
yeah. Well, you know what, Tyler, you're smart here because You brought some extra credit homework, if you will. You did your homework here. 11 ranked teams lost over the weekend. Which ranked team should be the most concerned?
Vince, I did, and I'm going to go with Kansas. Kansas blew the largest lead in school history. They're up by 21 at Baylor. Blew that one. They were outscored 60-30 in the final 20 minutes. And my concerns about Kansas, they stem from, obviously they should have won the game against Houston. They haven't had the best production from some of their portal guys. Zeke Mayo, he's been a little bit up and down. AJ Storr hasn't been consistent enough. You're starting to see Self mix up the lineups a little bit. I like Badunga. But I just thought that Kansas would be a much better team. And, sometimes, they're not making plays when they need to, and they're starting to let games slip. I really felt like Kansas would be a team that we'd be talking about as a contender. Right now, I'm just not sold on them in this loss. After having a big lead like this, 21 points, it just doesn't feel good with me. And it makes me scratch my head a little bit and, makes me not a big believer in Kansas.
Yeah, 100%, man. Like I think that there's a lack of leadership. I said this last night that you watch them and they gave up in the second half last night a 21-6 run and then an entirely separate 17-0 run. They were up by 8 with 7 minutes left and gave up a 7-0 run. They were up by 6 with a minute left against Houston and went to overtime. They were up by 6 with 13 seconds left on the free throw line in overtime and gave up that lead against Houston, right? And I think that it's strange to me that a team that has DeJuan Harris as your point guard is kind of dealing with that, but I think that's part of it. And now it's kind of in their head where they don't really know what they're supposed to be doing. They don't have confidence in what they're supposed to be doing. They know that they've been kind of found out a little bit, and they can survive to a point with their talent. But I think that there's a lack of leadership on that floor and in that locker room right now.
I couldn't agree more. They're lazy at times in games. They just are. You give up 60 points and a half, I can't help but say it. And I'm not saying I can go out and do what Tyler Hansbrough ever did. Rob, you played college ball. I'm not sitting here and saying that I'm like that, but I watch the games. Kansas, to me, has terrible lapses in games. They play for a Hall of Fame coach. They do. But the guys are making a good amount of money, and I'm seeing mistakes that Bill Self is not coaching mistakes. He's one of the best coaches in the history of the sport. This team doesn't play cohesive defense. They don't communicate. They kind of show up. They're a show up and let's roll the balls out, and we're just going to win because we're in a bracket of Peach Jam that we can't lose. This ain't that. This is the Big 12. You're on the road. You've got a 20-plus point lead. You're Kansas. You win the game. You win the game by 10-15. That loss yesterday solidifies the fact that I can't trust them in March. That they could have another early exit in March. So I'll tell you what, Tyler, that's concerning. Rob, do you have another ranked team, Rob, that you are concerned about at the moment?
The one that I would go with here is Florida. This is a team that's supposed to be built on having an elite offense, right? On being able to kind of outscore you in any situation. And to get held to 44 points at Tennessee, look, I know what Tennessee can do. I know how tough they are. I know how physical they are. I know how they guard. I watched it in person. I was there. I saw them hold Auburn to 53 points, right? You're playing rugby sometimes when you play against Tennessee. But if Florida can't get it going against a Tennessee team like that, that makes me worried about them a little bit. Big picture. I think the other easy answer here is Iowa State, but I'll just say for Iowa State, this is a team that they had just spent the last week in Arizona on their road trip. There are schedule losses. We hear about that in the NBA. I think that's a little bit more of a thing in college basketball. So I'm willing to give teams the benefit of the doubt in these massive leagues when they are coming back from the other side of the country. We all kind of jumped off the Purdue bandwagon when they lost at home to Iowa State coming back from their West Coast trip. And then they turned around the next night and beat Michigan by 687 points in Mackey Arena on a Friday night. So I'm gonna wait and see on Iowa State before I overreact to that too much.
I'll tell you what, mammoth game on Monday night. Tomorrow night, when Iowa State visits Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. You want to talk about finding out who you are as a club, finding out what you are? Tyler, give me a pick. Iowa State at Kansas tomorrow night. Who's going to win that game at Allen Fieldhouse? Will Jayhawks respond or will the Cyclones respond?
I'm going to go Iowa State. I think that
like
they've been
it.
a little
I like
bit
it.
more consistent. I like that way they get out and run. They put a lot of pressure. They're going to pressure Kansas defensively. I'm going to go with Iowa State on that one.
Look, it feels weird to pick against Kansas in Fog Allen Fieldhouse. I just think Iowa State is going to come out here with a point to prove. I'm on Iowa State here as well.
I think Tyler's exactly right. The ability of Iowa State to swarm Kansas defensively. You want to make Kansas work when Kansas is on offense, because Iowa State, as opposed to other Cyclone teams, even though they're coming off they're going to be pissed off. I mean, Kansas is too, but that Iowa State team, they should have won at Arizona. They had a no-show performance. TJ Otzelberger is going to have his club ready for this. They know the magnitude of it. What makes Iowa State different is they can defend better than Kansas can, and Iowa State's different offensively where they shouldn't go into any sort of a big rut. Rob, we got about 90 seconds here. It was a wild weekend. We got a huge week coming up. We talked about it in the Big East. It's going to be a lot of fun there. Nebraska beat Oregon today. Oregon's in a bit of a free fall right now. Memphis survived past Rice in terms of other matchups that we saw. We talked about a bunch of stuff. Any final thought, Rob, on what was a wild weekend of college basketball? We are 6 weeks away from Selection Sunday.
I'm gonna real quick. You missed the biggest game of the day. DePaul 74, Seton Hall 57. Skomans, baby. DePaul picked up their first Big East home win in what feels like about 5 years. Tyler, I'm doing it. Toast of the night, baby. Toast of the night. Skomans. Chris Holtman.
Hey, that's their largest Big East win. That coming by 17 over Seton Hall since a 32-point win over Georgetown back in 2019. DePaul has 11 wins for the first time in 3 years. I don't think they're done either. They got 2 Big East wins. I think they could get to 4 or 5, and good for Chris Holtman there. I'll tell you what, he's done a very nice job. I am going to toast a mid-major game to watch Monday night. All right? And yes, I am doing it, but I'm excited about it. Charleston at William & Mary. 8 Eastern Time, CBS Sports Network, Monday night. For the Junkies, Williamsburg hasn't had a great crowd in a little bit. They're going to have a big crowd. Charleston, Chris Mack coming on the road. If you haven't seen Brian Earl's team, they play fast and they get shots off. That's going to be a lot of fun. Tyler, any toast? You got
New Jersey's finest, Brian Earl right there. Shawnee High School.
Will Riley for Illinois going off.
Yeah,
there it is.
There you go.
And you know what? I'll toast John Calipari, because he had the redemption tour. We're back tomorrow night at 11. This has been After Dark.